Hello, hello.
I got a chance to watch a couple of them, and so that was helpful to kind of see your style and the process. So I'm happy to do it.
Okay. Welcome to the Lava Report. I want to welcome Dr. Shakir Abdul, longtime friend. Just so excited. This is actually our first interview of the new year. Last year we lost Dr. Coach Yanami Jones. She passed away. She was one of the individuals that did interviews. We use these interviews as basically educational tools to inspire, enhance others' lives. Just knowing your story and where we come from and how far you've come, and just for you to be able to navigate uh, uh, your way through, it was just amazing. Dr. Abdul, what you been up to, man? So what are you doing now?
So I've been up to a lot, man. I am actually the vice president of student affairs at Clayton State University in Morrow, Georgia, just south of Atlanta, about 15 minutes south of Atlanta. I also run my own consulting company, Practical Diversity Associates. I work with companies and schools to help them with their diversity and inclusion goals. And, that's where I'm at right now. I mean, I'm also a father of four. Um, and a husband and all that stuff. So this is all a part of my experience. I've been fortunate. And certainly come a long way since we met many moons ago, back in I think 1985, Miss Goodpasture's class in third grade. Yes,
so
sir.
so one of the things that I remember growing up, man, and I just always think of this, man. You were never ashamed to be an educated young brother, man. You were smart. Today a lot of kids, to be the smart guy is like is a negative thing.
Yeah.
You called certain things to be educated. I think there's a lot of post trauma things that go along with that. But you were never afraid of being a young scholar. I think you were a young scholar. I think, did you go to take those trips to Ohio State and
So my siblings were young scholars. I was not, but I mean,
okay,
I had my own journey, which was very different from my siblings. And it's funny, man. There's a quote, I don't remember who said it, but it said, "To be yourself in the world that wants you to be anything but that, that is the greatest accomplishment." And so I've been fortunate, bro. And it comes, from my family, but it also comes from my personality. I was always an introverted, shy guy, man, and
yeah,
because of that, um, I got lost in books, man. I would spend time in books. That was my escape. That was my pathway. I didn't have to worry about communicating with people or anything like that. I got to go and learn and explore. And one of the things, because I've been in touch with Miss Goodpasture, one of the things I remember
wow,
about third grade is she would always let me get up and go get all them books off the shelves, even if we were in the middle of class. And she said one time she tried to get me. She asked a question about something she was talking about, and I was reading a book. And so I stopped what I was reading, answered the question spot on, went back to reading, and she said she left me alone ever since then. So
yeah,
that
yeah.
that was an interesting story to me that I probably didn't remember as well as she did. But I mean that was my pathway, and that introversion helped me academically, but it also helped me navigate in other spaces as well.
Yeah, because sometimes the quiet kid doesn't get a lot of the attention. It's a kid like me that's always getting paddled all the time, always acting silly, So a lot of time, those kids, those quiet kids that are
Yeah.
in those moments, they don't really always get noticed. But
Yeah.
Ms. Goodpasture did a great job of that, finding, seeing those individuals with potentials. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking about African American, or 90% African American children, and she had that impact on us. Now she gave me a couple paddles now, but I know it was all out of love. It was a
Yeah.
lot. It was a different system then and a different structure,
For
and
sure.
I remember noticing that, man. And so even with the kind of behaviors that I exemplified, you were still a light in the classroom. That still was cool, even though to us it was like we wouldn't know, but we noticed, the difference. So as you began to develop, how did you get involved in sports?
And
When did you
so
start playing ball, or?
yeah, it was necessary for me because I was shy, I was smart. Those things weren't considered cool, right?
Right.
But athletics was my pathway to coolness, right? From my perspective. I mean, I appreciate you seeing me as a light. I was still that dude in trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to get my confidence from? And it came from sports. My older brother went to go try out for the Giants, and he was in I guess he would have been in sixth grade at the time. I was in fourth grade. So he went to tryouts. I rode over there on my bike. We rode up to Nemasilla Park. We grew up, we were on Fifth Street over there, 705th Street. That's where we were. Rode all the way up to Nemasilla Park. I don't know how far it was, but we rode our bikes over there. He went to try out. The Giants were the age group team practicing over at Nemasilla, and then the Vikings were my age group team practicing over at Nemasilla as well. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I could play this too, right?
Right.
Some kid had just quit, and so they had equipment for me. So they just gave me the equipment and said, hey, let's go play this, go figure this out, right? And so I remember, I had a duck. You remember the duck face mask?
Yep.
Yeah, you wasn't no good if you had
in your eyes and everything when you had a duck, man.
Right. And I would never forget, man. My first day of practice, we out here doing bull in the ring, and I ain't had no mouthpiece, right? And so I'm like, yo, no, why you calling me? I ain't ready. So that messed me up actually from an early stage, because I was like, crap, I'm not ready. I want to keep my teeth, right? And so I'm out there, and I was soft with it. And the crazy thing is I had the ability, but because I came late, I didn't have no affiliation. Didn't nobody know me from nowhere. None of the coaches. I wasn't no coach's son. Wasn't no friends of nobody on the team. It was crazy because it was, and this was also, this was fourth grade. And so one of the things that happened before I got to sports, in third grade, I got put in the stair steps program.
Yeah.
And the stair steps program was the pathway to the Canton High Ability program. So they selected me to go to the Canton High Ability program in fourth grade. And so I was not going to Washington anymore. I was bused from a 95% Black school to a 95%, maybe 85% white school, Harder Elementary. And it was the Canton High Ability program. So I didn't have friends or classmates. It ended up being one of my teammates, Mike Rodriguez, was also in that program with me. And we didn't figure out we were even on the same team, and until we were bragging at recess about playing for the Vikings. I'm like, wait, you on the same team as I am? I don't even know you. It was crazy because, like I said, I came late. I didn't know the game. I didn't know what I was doing, but I actually had a little bit of ability, and so I played for the Vikings under Coach Jeter for 2 years. The Vikings were good, man. So I ain't really see no run. I didn't see the field. I played with Adrian Brown was on that squad. I'm trying to remember who else was on our squad, but I mean, we had some cats, who could play. We had some cats who could play. I remember Mikey was on that. I remember these cats, man. But I had to go look. I think, DeAndre Quincy was on that team. We had some cats, man. We had some players. And so that was the beginning for me. And that was the introduction to, hey, this sports thing is something, right? My 2 years there, I didn't play much at all. We won a lot of games. We won the championships and stuff like that. So I remember getting trophies at the end of the season for being on the team. But, I didn't do much. I didn't really start taking off, man, until sixth grade, when I went and played for the Giants. The Giants were on the other side of Nemasilla. Giants weren't very good. And so my first year over there, I'm playing guard and I'm playing corner. So they already tell you what size I got. I'm playing offensive guard, but I'm really a corner size, right?
Right.
It was crazy.
That's where they put you. They're going to put you wherever you can play, man. You're going to play something.
Right. Man. And we didn't win. I think we won one game by a forfeit. We might have beat the Colts or somebody like that, and we celebrated. It was crazy. I think we tied the Packers. And I think, man, I'm trying to think. I think
Well, you had
Chase.
to come. You had to come see. I played for RC, the 49ers, so
Right. I remember y'all. I
you
remember
had to
y'all.
come see us, man.
I'm trying to think. I think we beat y'all one year, or maybe and lost another year,
Yeah,
because that was always the hardest game. That
yeah.
was
There
always the
was some
hardest.
tough games, man.
Yeah.
So how did you balance during that time? I have a lot of guys, a number of little league coaches that are coaching now. How were you able to balance schoolwork and practice
Yeah.
and sports? How was that able? Because you were part of
Yeah.
a gifted program, so there were a number of responsibilities that you had as well. Also to compete with your white counterparts,
Yeah.
your white brothers and sisters, you in the classroom. So now you're coming out of a 90 to 95% African American class. Now the competitive level was different. How were you able to compete and still balance sports at that time in your life?
And so there was a couple of things. You remember Mr. Sams was our principal at Washington, right? And
Yes.
Mr. Sams, he was a white dude, but he had a black effect, and he understood black people,
It
right?
was swaggadocious, wasn't he,
Right.
Smooth?
Swag on 100,000. And so when I went to Harder, there weren't many black folks, but the principal was black. Mrs. Minnie Hopkins was the principal. And that made a huge difference for me because I remember getting in trouble one time and having to go see Mrs. Hopkins, and it was good. It was all good. It wasn't as bad as it could have been, right?
Right.
And so I appreciated having her leadership, and that leadership made a difference for me because it helped me feel comfortable even in this space with all these other students, white students I didn't know, right? Competing, there were some kids who were off the charts smart, and I just appreciated that. There were other kids who, were smart, maybe not, that top level. And I'll be honest, I coasted. I did just enough to get by. I was trying, I was trying to be cool. I thought, okay, whatever, right? I can do whatever. My mother told me, she was like, listen, because I wasn't trying to go. She was like, don't. I was like, I'm not trying to go to this school. I want to stay with my family, right, with my siblings. And she said, give it 1 year, and if you don't like it, then you can come back to Washington. So I
Right.
did that first year, and it was all right. It worked out. I was like, okay, I'm used to this. This is good. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
go back. And I had the same teacher for fourth and fifth grade, Mr. Bonamico. He was a young teacher, new teacher, and that made a difference, I think, for me too, because I was able to connect with him, and I was comfortable. I was comfortable in that space, and like I said, I did just enough. But then we did extra stuff that was fun, whether it was, making videos or dissecting uh, owl pellets and different things like that. So it was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is cool. This is actually much more challenging,
Right. Right.
much more engaging, and I think that helped me to get through. But my parents strongly emphasized academics at home. We used to have report card parties. Whenever, you bring your report card home, you do well. We got ice cream and cake. We're celebrating, and
Yeah.
that's a big deal. And
Right.
so academics was a big part of what we did. I remember my mother bought 2 sets of encyclopedias so that we had resources and stuff like that at home. I remember just
Wow.
reading encyclopedias for the sake of being having something to read. And
Yeah.
so all of those things helped me balance because I knew that academics was highly valued. Athletics was just something to do, and
So
it was
I,
not.
I
Yeah.
remember your dad was a businessman, man.
Hmm.
I remember y'all. I think he was making oils and
Yes.
incense.
Yes.
We was in elementary school, not
Yes,
oil
sir.
everywhere, but he was a businessman. How much? Um, let's go back and rewind a minute. How much did your mother and father, you educationally, but not only structurally, raising? How many siblings you have?
Man, it was 20 of us, bro. Total, 20 of us total, because we come from a blended family, right? And
Yeah.
so my father, my biological father, was in Akron. I moved to Canton in third grade. When we met, that was my first year in Canton. I grew up in Akron. I was born in Akron, went to school in Akron, went to Portage Path Elementary in first and second grade. And Portage Path, that's the same school I think LeBron started at, right?
Hmm.
And so I had brothers and sisters in Akron. And so academics was a huge thing for me. And then also seeing strong black men that was my deal. That was my father and my stepfather. I got to see that, right? I got to see them thriving. My father was on the fire department in Akron, and my stepfather was a businessman who ran his own business. He used to travel around the country selling oils and incenses. And so
Yep.
we were
Yep.
part of that business. You know, we were working and putting all that stuff together. You know, we would go to some of the things and be little salesmen and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
all of that stuff was a part of the development.
Right.
All of that stuff was a part of gaining the confidence and understanding what it looked like or what it meant to navigate through certain situations. And you know, that helped make a big difference, because for me, I always knew, you know, sports was something that we enjoyed. Academics was something that we had to focus on, but we always had a strong spiritual grounding at home. You know,
Yes.
this was what we had to do. We had to be focused, and it was not enough for us to pursue, you know, worldly goals, but we also had to have spiritual goals as well. And those things kind of help balance us out and put us in a space where we were, you know, we were comfortable, even if, you know, we felt like outsiders a bit. We were still comfortable in our own skin.
Yeah, yeah. Because I remember you guys were the first Muslims that I met
Yeah,
and socialized with,
yeah,
and so your dress, your attire, and how you would come to school. So there was a look when you would come in, like,
right.
what's that on his head, man? What you got to wear that all the time? I probably
Yep,
used to ask you that the most, like, what is it, keep your head warm? You was like, yeah, you talked a lot about your
yeah,
faith, man, and I can see how that really impacted. And we are a mental health organization, and we really
yeah.
highlight a lot of spirituality. That's a part of your development
It
and
is.
growth. How major was that in influencing you, and how did you use that on the field?
Yeah. And so for me, it was really important because it was my grounding, right? My centering was in this knowledge that you know, everything I did was to please God. Everything I did was to be making sure that it was in the best light. And it was interesting when you said I was a light in the classroom. You know, that's one of the things that my parents emphasized, is that when you are spiritually sound, when you are spiritually focused, that gives off a light, and it's that light that you always want to be giving off. You don't want to be involved in those things that are going to bring darkness. You don't want to be involved in those things that are going to reflect negatively, you know, on yourself or your family or anything like that. And so the spiritual grounding for me helped me understand that everything that I was doing was bigger than me.
Yeah.
Everything, every opportunity that I had was not from me, but it was from God. And so
Mm.
my name, Shakir, is Arabic for one who is grateful. And so I used to operate, I still, you know, I always operate in this sense of gratitude. So any
Yes.
ability, any success I had, it was not from me, it was from God. And so it was me being grateful by maximizing the athletic potential, maximizing the academics potential. And it also was a situation where I understood that you know, I was protected, or I had some, you know, some spiritual armor to help me in those situations on the field where I felt maybe overmatched or felt impacted or whatever it was. I always knew that, hey, I'm gonna be okay, because he brought me to it, he's gonna bring me through it. And so that level of understanding was critical for my success. And honestly, you know, it really came into play, I should say, my senior year in high school, where I started to refocus on my spirituality. But prior to that, you know, I started to have some success. I started and played for the Giants. I played 1 year, and then I went and played at Crenshaw. I went to Crenshaw instead of Hartford. All my siblings went to Hartford.
Right.
I ended up going to Crenshaw. And so as Crenshaw, I started as a seventh grader at corner. But the first day, we had a first day of school, we had a scrimmage. And I
Mhm.
remember, man, I had my LA Gear brand new school shoes. And you know, you only get one pair of school
Yeah.
shoes,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know, when you
yeah.
come.
That's good.
So I forgot my cleats at home.
Huh.
I was not confident enough to tell the coach that, hey, I need to borrow a pair of cleats because I forgot mine at home. And so I lost my starting spot because I'm out here playing in my school shoes,
Getting
not
burned.
trying to get them dirty, right? They're white LA Gear joints. And I'm like, I can't get them dirty. So I wasn't digging my head in. I wasn't trying to tackle nobody. And so I lost my starting spot as a seventh grader to a brother named Kwame Tufo, And you know, I was ready and I was salty, but I didn't have the confidence to say, hey coach, I need some help. Hey
Right.
coach, I
Right.
forgot
Right.
my cleats. And it's
Right.
crazy because it's a lesson, you know, that I learned later. You know, I wasn't paying attention, but I look back sometimes with a bit of regret and say, man, I wish I would have been able to articulate to my coach that I forgot my cleats. And that's why
Right.
I'm not playing aggressively out here on this corner. Right.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so, I mean, I still got to play that year. I'll be on special teams. I did stuff, you know, I had fun. I had a good time. And I felt, okay, I belong here. I belong. And I thrived at Crenshaw because I got to do well. Athletically, I got to be involved. Like I said, I played football, but I also wrestled and I also ran track. And so it was like, okay, I'm coming into myself in terms of who I am and who I'm going to be. And those were things that I enjoyed. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is working for me.
Right.
And my parents still held me to a high standard. I almost got kicked out of the high ability program. I think after 8th grade because my grades had slipped. I was,
Man.
you know, I was trying to be cool, brother. I was
Yeah.
trying to be
Yeah.
cool because
Yeah.
for me, I stayed focused on those things. You know, I wasn't in the mix. I wasn't in the streets. I was protected from the streets in a lot of ways, but
Yes.
for me, I was like, okay, if I'm gonna be cool, I gotta mess with girls. I gotta have some girls, right? And that was a distraction for me because I spent time trying to chase girls. Where at home, my parents are like, "No, you can't have a girlfriend. That's not what you do." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna do what I do, right?" And so rebelling in that way impacted some of my academic success at that time.
Right. 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 So your transition from, let's say, Crenshaw, now you at McKinley. So we went two different directions. So usually from Harvard you go to McKinley. I
Right.
went from Harvard to Timken. You went
Yep.
from Crenshaw to McKinley, and that's just a whole nother sports world when it comes to as far as football and athletics. Period. The
Yep.
mentality it was a McKinley City. You know, you just did not go. What you doing in Timken? I still get crucified for going to Timken. And what you doing? Don't you know how many championships we could have won at McKinley? Y'all,
Right.
we all supposed to stick together, man. And I know Adrian used to say that a lot, Brown. So
Yep.
once you got to McKinley, man, now that's even more busy. So now that's even more pressure. You know what I mean? Man. So you got everybody coming from all these different schools together. It's just high expectation, not only to succeed athletically. Once you started transitioning in that arena, what was that like? That merger between
Yeah.
sports and sports and education there, that merger. How did
Yeah.
that go, bro? Because
So
I hadn't seen you, but only in passing.
right. And so for me, McKinley was huge. It was a big step up. But in my mind, I was ready for McKinley, right? We had been doing these things. We had some success at Crenshaw. You know, a lot of us knew each other from playing against each other, right? And so I show up as a sophomore because, you know, freshman year was it was in junior high back then. So
Right.
10th grader, I'm a 10th grader. I make the varsity, right? And so I'm dressed in varsity as a 10th grader. I made it through camp. I'm in there, you know, going hard and practicing hard, running the scout team and all this good stuff. I remember running scout team tailback, right? And we going up against the first team defense. And, you know, you got
Chase
Danielle
Bryant.
Harris. Yeah, Che Bryant. You know, listen, I've never been hit harder in my life than I was in practice by Che Bryant. They brought a safety blitz, right?
Yeah.
And you know how if you get them on the first, if you're on the scout team, you run it and you get them, right? I got some yards. I was feeling good, right?
Yeah.
Run it again. Run it again.
Yep. You got to rep it. They got to see it again.
They ran it again. Same blitz. They knew it was coming. I got the ball coming up the middle. Pow.
Wow.
I've never been hit harder in my life
something else, man.
than I was in that practice, man. But I was like, okay, I'm still here. I'm good, right?
Right.
And so when I could bounce back from that, you know, I felt good. I'm like, I'm here. I belong. I'm gonna be all right. And so, you know, I got to run the ball a couple times as a sophomore. You know, I think we lost one game, matter of fact, that year. We lost to it was Youngstown Cardinal Mooney. We lost on the road to Youngstown Cardinal Mooney. We went 9-1. We didn't make the playoffs, but we beat Massillon, right?
Yeah.
So that was huge. That was big, right? And so I'm going through academically, I'm doing well, but I'll be honest, I was coasting. You get to select your classes in high school, and I was like, yo, I'm gonna just take this basic English class, right?
Right.
I'm in this class, and Miss Val Pack, who was my English teacher, she was like, what are you doing? Get out of this class. You're not supposed to be in this class. She was like, I'm not letting you come back to this class. You got to go to the honors English class, right? And so she made me work up to my ability, right? And folks didn't let me slide, so I appreciated that. I've had people who looked out for me.
Yeah.
They didn't let me slide, and because of that, I was able to do well academically. I mean, I was all right. And then as I started to progress junior and senior year, taking all these honors classes and doing more, taking physics and all this stuff. I was on a higher level Spanish class. I was doing all this stuff, and I was thriving. I was doing really well, which was a good thing academically. I had a good balance, taking advantage of study halls and doing work at home. That helped. But then we were in the weight room. I'm getting bigger, stronger. Junior year, I'm playing a backup linebacker, tailback. And, I was playing behind Kente. You remember Kente?
Yeah,
Mitchell?
I know.
He was our classmate in terms of class of 95. And so, I got some run. We beat Cardinal Mooney that year, and I actually got an interception from the linebacker spot. Something happened. Kente had to come out, and I ran in there. I caught the ball, got me a pick, right? And I'm like, I'm here, right? I'm ready. And so, we're doing well. We made it to the playoffs. We went 9-1 again. I can't remember, man. I can't remember who we lost to, but we lost in the playoffs.
Was it a Cincinnati team?
No, we lost in the playoffs to Walsh Jesuit. We lost to Walsh Jesuit in the playoffs, but I'm trying to remember our regular season loss. I don't even remember who we lost to, which is crazy. But anyway, so we were doing well, man. We did well. And we kept doing our thing. And senior year is where it really blew up for me, man. That summer, I had done well. Well, really that whole junior year, I started in we had this heavyweight lifting program. I was throwing up some serious weight. I was doing my thing. I was doing well academically. And so, the coaches knew me, my classmates knew me, and it was interesting because, the guys on the team were like, yo, I mean, you out here doing this, but I don't know where you're going to play. And I was like, I don't care. I said, I'm playing, what I'm saying? I had I had this confidence, man. And I think that confidence really came from my junior year. I remember, I was my own dude, man. I was my own self. I had my guys, but, I wasn't all the way in the in crowd. Right. And there was a lot that happened that year, man. There was a lot that happened that year. That summer, I remember, I'm not going to tell the whole story, but I remember one of my teammates got caught up in a serious case. And I had seen him earlier that day. We were at like a summer all-star football game, and he was like, yo, what's up? What we doing tonight? And I was like, I'll probably see what we can do. And I didn't go. I didn't go to wherever it was going on later on. And later that night, something really, really popped off.
I remember.
Yeah. And so for me, I was always protected from the streets. And that was one of the times I was protected because I didn't end up in the same space, right? I didn't end up in the same space as other folks. But that summer, and so like that summer, I'm sitting here, that would have been junior year. This stuff is going on. But on the team, there were people on the team, whatever they felt about me. Cats, they try to come at me, and I'm like, listen, we can go right now. I don't care. And folks hadn't seen that side of me, and I'm like, listen, we're the same cats. I'm this guy. You know me. We used to walk home from track practice, but you trying me like you don't know me. Let's figure it out. Because that wasn't my thing. I was not. I was not that kind of dude.
Oh, I know.
I was not going to let nobody run over me.
That's right.
I was not. And so I just laid it down. I laid down the law, and never again was I tested in that same way.
Right. That's major.
Yeah. I was like, cool.
That's major.
I just stood my ground. I stood my ground because whatever the outcome was going to be, I was ready for it. Right.
Right.
And so that set me up, I think, for future success.
Right, right. And the mental health, that's a major portion of where there's a fight, flight, freeze, and fawning responses.
Yes.
So your fight response, actually, that's is to protect you.
Yes.
Some people are always in fight mode when there's no fight. They're running from a bear, or they're running from they're ready to fight a lion when there's no lion in the room. But the balance that you had at that moment, you want to be able to stand up for yourself and be stern. And that's a lot of confidence that I think a lot of people miss, that you're going to keep being used and abused and misused if you don't stand up for yourself at some moment. So
Absolutely.
then you transition. So were you getting recruited to college, or did letters start to come? And then how was that transition from high
Yeah.
school to college?
So the letters didn't come from me, man, until into my junior year. Um, Academically, I was good, I was solid, I was in honors classes. I decided, like, at that new year, I was going to recommit to my faith. I was focused, right? I was ready. The letters started coming because I did well on the ACT when I took it my junior year, right?
Hmm.
I took it one time, scored well, and then all of a sudden the floodgates opened up in terms of letters. Lots of them were for academics. Some were for football, right? And
Right.
so these opportunities started coming. I remember my principal, Mr. Vernon Russell, looking out for me. He gave me some different jobs where I could work and make money. My counselor started to know who I was, and she was like, "Oh, okay, well, let's make sure you good, right?" And so
So
people,
this was an African American principal, right?
yes,
This
Mr.
was
Vernon
this
Russell, yeah.
okay. This no, these are African American leaders.
Yeah, Mr.
Okay.
And I told you about Minnie Hopkins,
Yep. Yep.
my black principal in elementary school.
Right.
Those people made a difference. Mr.
Yeah.
Russell, he was a black principal for the high school. He was also a member of Omega Psi Phi, which I later found out. And he had this gravitas as a black man that I appreciated, and he also looked out for me
Yeah.
as a student at his school. So I was fortunate because these people helped open the door for me and point me in the right direction. And they also, helped me in terms of personal growth. And so job opportunities were key. I had always worked in the summer from the JTP
Oh
program.
yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
buying my own school clothes and school shoes. So that self-sufficiency was developing. Those were some skills that I was developing. And I'll tell you what really turned the corner for me, man. Between my senior year and my junior year, I spent about a week in Tuskegee, Alabama at Tuskegee University. My
Wow.
mother put me on a bus from Canton, Ohio to Tuskegee, Alabama. I was probably 16, 17 hours on a Greyhound bus to go to this summer camp, right?
That dog. You was on that dog.
I was on it. I was on it.
Yeah.
And the thing was, I was surrounded at this camp by black kids from all over the country who were the best and the brightest, right? And I felt like I shined. I stood out. I'm like, I can match y'all academically, but
Right.
can't none of y'all match me with this athleticism, right? And so
Right.
in my mind, my confidence just grew exponentially. It grew exponentially, and I think that was what set the tone for my senior year and for some additional opportunities that came from that. And so my
Right.
senior year, I got an opportunity to go meet with the coach, and he was like, "Listen, you're gonna play this year. I want you to do this. I'm gonna move you. We're gonna put you a middle linebacker, and you're gonna do this, right?" I'm sitting here. I'm 5'11", 173, soaking wet, and you got Kente on one side and Jim Buffington on the other side. They both 6'2",
Yeah.
200 plus, right, right. And here I go. I'm in the middle playing middle linebacker, and it was
Yeah.
crazy because I'm like, cool. I'm in here. I'm doing it. But I was still building my confidence. And so they signal plans. I'm supposed to call the plays, but I wasn't loud enough. I wasn't assertive enough as that in that role.
Right.
And
Right.
so they moved Kente to call the plays. And I'm like, man, but by the end of the year, I'm like, no, I got this. And I was good, but it was a development piece, man. It
Right.
was really a development piece and just the growth and the confidence. And then they needed to be able to trust me. And so we get out there, we balled out. We went 8-2. Our senior year, we lost to Ignatius and we lost to Massillon, man, the 42-41
I remember that.
overtime joint, right?
Yep,
The 100th game, right?
I remember watching that.
Right, but we were there, man. We learned a lot throughout that season. There was so much going on. They had a television show. I went on the television show maybe 2 times. The first time I was just like this shy, quiet dude, and then the second time I was like, boom, I'm ready. You know, because the growth was exponential,
so
man.
You started coming out of your shell, man. It's like you,
absolutely. But it came from people having confidence in me. You know, Coach McDaniels had confidence in me. Coach Kovacs had confidence in me to do all these things and to help the team out. And then my teammates started believing in me because they saw me out there doing it. First game of the season, we're playing against Akron Garfield. Antoine Winfield was on that squad, who went on to be, you know, an NFL player, Ohio State All-American and all that good stuff. We beat them. Last play of the game, I sacked the quarterback and saved the game. We win, right? And so my teammates believe in me, and I also believe in myself because I have the proof in the actions that have already taken place.
That's major. That's major. So now you get to college. So did you play in college?
I did. I actually played. I played at Wittenberg University, man, in Springfield, Ohio. So that whole process was interesting because my senior year, I told you about my trip to Tuskegee. You know, but then the first school I got accepted to was Morehouse College in Alabama, right? I mean, Atlanta. I'm sorry, in Atlanta. I was on my way to Morehouse. First school I got accepted to, I was gonna go. I wanted to play football at Morehouse. I took them my tape and everything. I'm like, yo, you know what I mean? Y'all got to recruit me to play football. And so I thought that's what I was going to do.
Hey, your tape.
That's how old we are. We ain't had huddle.
Yeah, they took them your tape. That tape, you had to cherish that tape.
Right, and they never gave little it back. Clips. Right, they never gave it back. Hey, that was a different era, wasn't it?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And so like I said, I was getting lots of letters from smaller schools, some Division I AA, some mostly Division III schools and stuff, Division II schools. And, you know, I'm taking these visits. I'm enjoying it. Man, I loved it. I loved the whole process. And I'm like, you know, I still saw myself as a football player, even though I was an academic, right?
Right.
I had my final choices of schools. It came down to Morehouse, Wittenberg, and Ohio State. So by now, Morehouse finally called with some scholarship money because Mr. Russell, my principal, his son was at Morehouse, and he made a call for me, and they gave me a half tuition community service scholarship. I'm like, bet, that's going to work, right? But they said, well, you can't play football if you have this scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, man, that's tough, right?
Right.
And the other, I was still going to go, but I never got my whole financial aid package from Morehouse. So my mother was not comfortable sending me to Atlanta without a complete financial aid package.
Right.
When I had a whole financial aid package from Wittenberg and I could still play football at the small school, Division III. And then I had a full tuition scholarship from Ohio State, an academic scholarship. You know, had I understood, I'll be honest, I didn't know anything at all about the recruiting process. I probably would have tried to walk on at Ohio State, hindsight, just because of that affiliation with the Ohio State football team, all the doors that it opens and all that. But don't worry, I eventually got back to Ohio State, but I ended up going to Wittenberg. I went to Wittenberg University in Springfield, Ohio, Division III. I played outside linebacker at Wittenberg. Lettered all 4 years, but started only my sophomore year. And so lots of lessons in that experience. I mean, Wittenberg was the perfect place for me because it was a small institution. I had a chance to connect with some folks who are my lifelong friends and people who have challenged and supported me throughout my life. I got to develop those relationships at that small school. I got to grow in terms of my confidence. Not only did I play football, I ended up being the president of our Black Student Union. I was involved in our campus programming board. I was involved in theater. I was involved in creating a unity march between us and the community. I was involved in organizations. I joined Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. All of these things were a part of my growth, right? I got put in leadership positions. I got challenged. I got supported. And in football, there was a lot that went on. I mean, I always grew up, my family, we had a strong identity, both as Muslims, but also as Black people. So always instilled in me was this sense of pride in Blackness and understanding. So my freshman year, we had a bye week, and that bye week happened to be the same weekend as the Million Man March. And so I went home to Canton, got on a bus from Canton, took a bus down to DC for the Million Man March. And it was amazing because I'm looking around here, I'm seeing brothers doing all this stuff and from all these different places, all these different walks of life. And it was, it was mind blowing. And it was, again, inspirational, helped me to understand where I was in the world and that there were some opportunities for us. So I certainly loved and appreciated seeing all that positivity.
Wow.
But when I came back, I remember talking with my coach, and I was like, yeah, man, it was more than 1 million people down there. And so he started arguing me about the number of people who were there. I was like, bro, you weren't even there. But I wasn't understanding that he was coming from a place where he couldn't appreciate or understand what it meant for 1 million Black men to be gathered into this one space. So I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'm starting to understand and learn
his ideology. That's his ideology.
Exactly. And so I'm now more mature and I can understand that. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And so I'm dealing with that. Sophomore year, when I'm starting at outside linebacker, we lost the game. I blew a play, I missed a tackle, and that was that, right? And so I didn't start anymore. But here was the issue for me. The next week, when the change was made, I found out about the change in the newspaper the Saturday before the game, the morning of the game. I'm like, Coach, what's up? And he was like, well, yeah. I'm like, bro, you couldn't have told me this?
And it was in the write-up.
Right. And I'm like, bet, I'm out. I'm quitting. That was probably the worst mistake of my life. I only quit for about a day or two, right? So I ain't really quit, but I quit. And in his mind, it was a wrap for me. He couldn't trust me. And so I would never really play for him again, even though I was the best option at outside linebacker. And I came every single day to prove just that. And so I'm often reminded of the poem. The test of a man is the fight that he makes, the grit that he daily shows, the way that he stands upon his feet and takes life's numerous bumps and blows. A coward can smile when there's not to fear and nothing is progress bars, but it takes a man to stand and cheer while the other fellow stars. And so that was who I was. And I'm telling you, I embodied that poem. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh, this is it for me, because I'm here. Right. I'm here. You know what I'm saying? It takes a man to stand and cheer while the other fellow stars. How many of our young people get discouraged because somebody else is in a position right now? Right. How many of our young people get lost because their opportunity is not playing out for them exactly as they wished it would in that moment? They don't understand the character development that comes from being ready, being behind, and being and learning, right?
Right.
Because I was not supposed to start at middle linebacker my senior year at McKinley. There were some other cats, certainly, who I thought were better than me that should have been starting, but had academic challenges, so they didn't get that, right? There were other cats who people thought should have been starting, but they gave me my chance to go ahead and start. But that wouldn't have been there for me had I not stuck it through, had I not seen it through, and had I not been the best teammate that I could be. And so there was so much for me that I learned from those experiences and from being in that space and understanding that, hey, when you call on me, I'm ready. Because as a matter of fact, it was the year, it may have been my sophomore year when I wasn't starting anymore, got in the game, somebody calls the fumble, I picked it up, ran it back for a touchdown, about 50, 60 yards, got to the back of the end zone. I threw that ball so hard at the back of the post. I was like, oh, you know what I mean? I'm like, listen, I do this. I know I can do this. I don't care what you say. I had the self-confidence by that point. I had the self-understanding that regardless of the circumstances, I'm ready. I know what I can do. I'm not worried about the shackles or the limitations you place upon me, because I know my ability, and my ability is coming from constant preparation. And so, those were some things, that experience helped validate me in many ways. I felt good.
Powerful,
I'm like,
man.
I'm ready.
Powerful.
This is it. Yeah.
Powerful, man. It's an African proverb that says, I believe, opportunity doesn't awake those who are asleep. So opportunity ain't gonna come shake up your bed and wake you up. You got to be prepared, man. And that's powerful, man. And I'm quite sure any of you that are listening right now, that's something you guys can take with you, man. That was powerful for me. And I know a lot of our youngsters that will be watching these videos will be able to identify that, especially coming from a place where in our community, we experience so many traumas and so many roadblocks in our way, but still it cannot be an excuse not to be prepared. Though those roadblocks may come, though those stumbling blocks may come, and the storms may come, but just the preparedness that you talked about so when you're prepared, you're in the game. It doesn't make sense to not be in a position to take your place when the moment comes. Because, and another thing, your faith. So, in God preparing you to say that you're my son, your footsteps are ordered. So it might not look like you want it to look, but I'm still working things out in your favor. Your gratitude actually sounds like it had been shining in those situations. Gratitude is huge, man. So therefore, you started pushing through. So now you're talking about your junior and senior year. So you continue to push. And how did your relationship build with that coach after that?
And so my relationship with that coach was always going to be strained. And that was okay with me, because I knew I was going to show up every day. I was going to play as hard as I could in practice. I'm trying to win every sprint in my position. Everybody saw it. And to me, that was all I could do, is come and show it. I had to show it. I had to prove it, not only to myself, but other people got a chance to see that. And so that was my space. That was my space. I was like, I'm going to do all of these things. I'm going to join my fraternity. I'm going to be the president of our Black Student Union. I'm going to do all of these things while being a standout in practice. And if you give me the chance to get on the field, I'm going to shine on the field as well. Matter of fact, I remember sophomore year was the same game I didn't start. I got in at the end of the game and I tackled 3 people at once: the quarterback, the tailback, and the fullback.
Everybody
I'm like, listen, this is what I do. And I felt good about that. But for me, the relationship with that coach was strained, and it was curious, really, too, because I had a chance to go see him a couple years ago, and he turned down the opportunity to come to see me and some other folks. So it was interesting. But that was who he was, and not necessarily a reflection on me.
Right. So you got your degree in what there, and then you went on. So you went to 2 more different colleges after that?
Yeah, so I really appreciated the experience I had at Wittenberg. I got my bachelor's degree in business management. While I was there, I had 2 internships. I had 2 really significant internships. Each summer, I would work at National City Bank, and they would give me a scholarship. And I had to major in something related to business. So I majored in business management. I minored in economics. But then my other piece, I had a work-study job on campus in the Office of Admissions, right? And so by the time I'm a senior, I'm an intern in the Office of Admissions. I'm running the minority recruitment space as a senior in college, and just really enjoyed that experience. And it was in direct contrast to my experience in banking. I hated the banking piece, right? I was doing it because it was a scholarship. It was some experience I could put on my resume. That was great. But I loved what I was doing in the recruiting space, right? And so I moved to Atlanta. I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, after I graduated from Wittenberg with a bachelor's in business management. My first job in Atlanta was at a school called American Intercontinental University. I was an admissions assistant, and I was making $19,000 a year. This was in 1999, right? But that was bank for me, man. I'd never seen nothing like that. I'm like, y'all gonna pay me a salary? 19? I'm with it, right?
Yeah.
And then You know, that was a good experience for me because I didn't get to go to Morehouse, but my best friend, Jason Williams, he went to Morehouse. And so he was finishing up while we were living together in Atlanta. And so I'm kicking it on campus at Morehouse. I got my, you know, I got my little
Yeah,
Morehouse taste, right?
yeah, yeah,
I got
yeah.
to go kick it at homecoming and see the, you know,
The
the
bands and
Spellman and all that
yeah,
stuff, the
yeah, yeah.
bands. And I tell you what was amazing, that homecoming, the Alphas from Morehouse selected Keisha Knight Pulliam for
Yep.
who was Rudy from the Cosby Show as their homecoming queen. And so I'm
Wow.
sitting here right here firsthand watching it like, yo, this is wild. And it was great for me. I love
Yeah.
the experience. But then I moved back to Ohio and I had to find a job. So I worked in banking for a little bit. But then a few months later, I went back and worked at Wittenberg. I worked in admissions at my alma mater for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
Life started changing. Some different opportunities came. And I decided I was going to go to graduate school. I got accepted at Ohio State, delayed my enrollment at Ohio State for a year. And before I went to Ohio State, I went and spent about 2 weeks in the Dominican Republic with Jason, my man who had went to Morehouse and moved
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
He was in the Dominican Republic working. And that was life-changing for me because I got to see the world very differently than I had seen it up to that point. I had not been on a plane. My first flight was at 19 years old, freshman year at Wittenberg. I flew down to Atlanta to kick it with Jason for spring break, right? That was my first plane flight. And here I am flying from the United States to the Dominican Republic, a whole nother country. And it was amazing, right? And so I'm down there and the people are looking at me. They're like, oh, you're Dominican, right? I'm like, I'm a black man from America. What are you talking about? And they were like, you lying. They called me a liar. They mentirosa. And the thing is, out of years in school, I had learned Spanish, so I could speak a little, you know, Spanish a little decently. Yeah. And so I'm in the cities and I'm walking around. I wasn't a tourist, right?
You like a baseball, like you played for the Dodgers or something, man.
Right. And they don't believe me that I'm not Dominican. They think I'm making this up so I can hustle them, right? I'm like, nah, what I mean, but apparently people do that, right? But for me, to be welcomed and seen as Dominican was life-changing because I'm like, wait a second, my understanding of blackness is off a bit, right? It's all wrong, right?
Right.
And so I go to Ohio State grad school, working on my master's in higher education and student affairs. I had a work graduate assistantship working in a multicultural center there, working with African-American student services, and really just continuing to grow and learn stuff and be engaged. I was involved in our Black Graduate and Professional Student Caucus. By the second year, I was actually the president of that organization. I was also a graduate senator in the University Student Government. So I'm doing all these things. And then between my first and second year, I was 2 years in my master's program. That summer after my first year, I spent about 6 weeks in Europe studying, right?
Wow.
And another game changer, brother. I'm in Paris, right? Yeah. Walking down the Champs-Elysees. I'm going up to Eiffel Tower. You know, I'm in the Louvre. I'm doing all this stuff. And I'm seeing all kinds of black people in Paris. You know what I'm saying? Kanye got that song, came out years later.
That's my jam.
Right, in Paris, right? Right.
Ball so hard.
Right. Gotta find me. You know what I'm saying? But they can't find me. Listen, and it was real for me. I mean, my mind was blown because I'm like, okay, everything I thought I knew, I don't know anything. I'm in England. I'm in, you know, visiting Germany, up in Scotland, you know what I'm saying? Going to look at the old course and all that. And it was just amazing to me because I'm seeing all these people from all over the world, these black people, and people are looking at me and I'm like, oh, you're American. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm a black man. And I was like, no, you American. And I'm like, wait a second. You know what I mean? Because it's just, the understanding is so very different. But this world exposure was opening up my worldview and helping to change perceptions and perspectives that I had that were inaccurate, right? And so you know, the thirst for the world was opened up. It was
Yes.
opened up. I'm sitting there talking to people. There was a student. There was this girl from Nigeria, and she's like, "Oh, what tribe are you from in Nigeria?" I'm like, "Whoa, I'm not. I don't think I'm Nigerian." And she was like, "Well, look at you. You got these
Yeah.
tribal scars and marks on your face. You look like you from, you know, this particular people." And I'm like, "Man, I
Right.
don't know
Right.
because of our history, right?"
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so it was just amazing to have these interactions with people from all over the world because they helped shape my understanding. And so when I
Wow.
got back
That's
to
huge,
Ohio,
man.
when I got back to the U.S., right, I thought, okay, I don't know nothing. I thought, okay, I'm gonna get this master's degree, be done with it, right? Because when I first went to school, I thought 4 years, I'm done. I ain't doing nothing else, right?
Right.
Went to get this master's degree, and I'm between my first and second year, and I'm like, oh shoot, I got to get a PhD.
Keep it
I got
rolling.
to.
Keep it
I got
moving.
to.
Keep it moving.
Right, because I
Don't
didn't
stop now. Don't
right,
stop now.
right. And so that next year in my master's program, got a chance to spend 10 days in Egypt, bro.
You went
10
to
days
Egypt,
in
man.
Egypt.
Oh man.
Listen, I
Wow.
land, I land, right? I'm on the ground, first time ever being in the motherland. And here's the thing, being Muslim and going over to a Muslim country, they welcomed me with open arms, and everybody was like, welcome home, brother. And it was crazy too, because they looked at me, somebody was like, oh, are you Italian? I'm like, wait a second, what?
Right.
Understanding that we don't know the world like we think we know the world,
Because
right?
we basically try razor. Your features, you go somewhere, they're trying to figure out where you're from.
Exactly. And it was amazing, man, just to have these experiences. I'm sitting here, um, I'm going to the Muhammad Ali Mosque. The mosque, if you've seen the movie Malcolm X, it's the mosque
Yep.
where he's praying in Egypt. I'm in that same masjid praying, and
Wow.
I'm looking out. I look across the city, and what do I see? I see the pyramids rising up in the distance, bro. It's amazing. We're driving through. We see the pyramids, and I'm like, this is amazing. The pyramids are great. Go around the corner, the Sphinx, the Great Sphinx, and you know that's meaningful to Alpha
Yep.
Phi Alpha. And so for me to see all this stuff and have these experiences, it was mind blowing. And so that was the spark that kept the continuation of my academic journey. I graduated from Ohio State. I worked at Ohio State for 2 years in the Multicultural Center, got some really good experience. Then I went over to Capital University Law School. I was the director of multicultural affairs, recruiting and working with law students. From there, I went to Auburn University in Alabama.
Right.
And at Auburn, I completed my PhD, right? And while I was there, right before I finished my PhD, I got to go spend 2 weeks in Malawi in Southern Africa. And so I'm teaching multicultural competence to Malawi and helping these folk understand some of the dynamics of U.S. culture and stuff like
Wow,
that.
man.
And
That's
when I
huge.
got back, I didn't bring an ounce of work for my PhD with me. I said, I'm taking a break. I read a book called The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. And
The
it talks
warmth of
about
other
the
suns.
warmth of other suns. It talks about the great migration of Black people from the South to all parts of the U.S., right? And
Mm-hmm.
so it was amazingly timely for me because here I am, you know, making a journey, a pilgrimage to Africa and learning about how, you know, our predecessors in the U.S. made different journeys and pilgrimages out of the South to different parts of the U.S. And it gave me the spark, the motivation I needed to finish up that PhD. And so I wrapped up my PhD in 2012. My research was on the multicultural competence of diversity services staff in higher ed. So I was looking at people who did diversity work in higher education. How did they come to that work? What was their motivation? And then ultimately, are they good or skilled enough to do that work? That was what I
Wow.
studied. And
Right.
so my dissertation was eventually published in a book called Baptism by Fire, the experiences of diversity professionals in higher ed, because one of
Mm-hmm.
the people who I solicited for my research, her response was like, "This is like a baptism by fire profession. They just throw you into it and help you figure it out." And so that to me was a key finding
Mm-hmm.
in my work, and so that became the title. But I mean, this was the work, man. I mean, this was what it was for me. all throughout this journey, I'm growing my family and learning and getting these experiences. After I left Auburn, I went to the University of Minnesota. I was the assistant vice president in the Office for Equity and Diversity at the University of Minnesota. I was there for about 5 years. I was at Auburn for 5 years. And now I'm at Clayton State University serving as the vice president of student affairs. This is my 3rd year at Clayton State down here in Atlanta, Georgia. And so that's the path, man. That's the path.
And just listening to you and there's no time on this. I mean, as long as the spirit moves, man.
Yeah.
I'm seeing you with your books in class,
Mm-hmm.
in 3rd grade, and watching this journey. And for a time, you disappear and you become this doctor. But that person was sitting in Miss Goodpasture's classroom. Your Dr. Shakir was sitting there, but the major influence and all the supports and your experiences, but there were people that wrapped around you and made sure you were in the proper places. And for those individuals that are watching, they should be those shepherds, sort of guiding and wrapping around and protecting. And it came from people of all races that supported you, man. And so in this time and what we see, man, and this time of division,
Mm-hmm.
What message would you have in this time of division? You've traveled the world.
Yeah.
You've seen the difference. What is the message that you have right now? They're storming the Capitol, man. Like you can go somewhere and they know you're American. I'm an American. We weren't born in Africa, man. We were born right here. Somebody in our history survived the passage to get here over pounding seas and made it here. We are survivors of that. We made it. So I'm an American. No matter how I got here,
right?
This is my country. So you can't tell me to go back nowhere. Now, is that my ancestral country? Yes, but I was born here.
Yeah.
So being in America and having this pride for when we do go back and we travel to the motherland and when we navigate our through this world, what message did you have for this divided world that we're living in right now?
Well, I mean, I think we have to understand who's benefiting from the division, right? There are people who are benefiting and profiting off of division, hate, and this divisiveness. And I think the reality is we have to examine the United States, its origins, and its processes. In 1857, the Supreme Court ruled that Black people were not citizens of the United States and were not intended to be citizens of the United States in the Dred Scott decision. The Supreme Court justice said that Black people had no rights that the white man was bound to respect. This was 5 years before the Civil War. This was 7 years before the Emancipation Proclamation. This was not a long time ago. This is a history that's been embedded in the US, a history of denying rights and denying access to Black people, right? We have to reconcile that history with our present. This is why we struggle. There is a group that wants to hold on to that historical white supremacy and the historical denial of rights, access, and resources for Black people. That is the group that was storming the Capitol. That is the group that's failing to recognize the electoral process and systems in the United States because they fear that if Black people come into power, they will implement the same mechanisms of oppression that were implemented on Black folks by white folks who were in power. That is an unfounded fear because that has not ever been a goal or intention
it's not
of
reality.
Black folks.
That's not reality.
It's not. And I think we have to help people understand that don't operate in that fear. Let's operate in the possibilities. Look how great America can be if we operate and give everyone the opportunity to maximize their potential.
Right.
If we help undocumented individuals get papers, we can collect additional tax dollars. We can create the next generation of scholars and all of these things. There is a fear of loss that is weighing on people heavily, as opposed to this fear of possibility of success.
Right.
And I think that is where we need to get. We need to get to this understanding. The reality is that, the United States is a non-denominational country, but the reality is we operate as if we are an atheistic country where there's no faith in the possibility of what God has in store for us, right?
Wow.
These are some things that are hurting us. And the craziest thing about it is people that profess a belief in God are often the ones who are leading the hateful rhetoric and leading this divisiveness that is not at all part of any scripture or religious tradition that we celebrate or embrace here in the United States.
They go, it's totally opposite. It's totally counter. And it's almost a anti-faith establishment when they're talking this. And as you go through the verses, this can't be who you are. And a number of evangelicals are going, and we read the same book, even though you're Muslim, you still embrace the Bible as a piece of truth,
as a part of divine revelation.
Yes. So therefore, we know the conscience of these people have been seared, and they're believing that their mind is reprobate, and they're believing a lie, and they're believing false prophets, and their eyes are not open, and not fear, which is a good point. False evidence appearing real. That's another acronym for fear. It's false evidence. It's not true. So in your fear, what you think might be real, it might not be real, and that's what's damaging, and that's what's causing lives daily, man. From the least of them to the greatest of them. So this division, from the COVID, from the mortality rate of infant mortality, from access to equal education and equal health care, it does not make us a stronger America when we're a house divided against itself can't stand.
Cannot stand. That's what Abraham Lincoln said.
And Jesus said it too. he said, how can, they was calling him Satan. He was like, well, how can Satan cast out Satan? How you gonna tell me, the good that I'm doing, didn't I go make the blind see? And I've been healing people, and the good I'm doing, how can that be the devil? I didn't feel what I'm saying. So
no, and that's real. No, because think about it. From the Islamic tradition, the first racist was actually Satan. And so from the Islamic tradition, Satan would not acknowledge Adam and his creation. He said, I'm made of fire, he's made of clay. I am better than him. And so whenever you get caught in this notion of being better, and so he was cast out of heaven because he didn't succumb to God's will and God's direction. And so if you think you're better than someone, then you're going to be working against God's plan. And I think that's the history of what's put us in this space. You people think that they are better than others because of their creation. And that's not the piece, man. That's not the way.
So imagine this, and as we go through this, we have this internalized racism that takes place when we take on the image of Satan, the devil, the and we treat ourselves. So this internalized view of our own people, that's also you can't escape. So now, almost like those individuals that stormed the Capitol, those were a lot of Caucasian Americans storming the Capitol, and inside those walls and that leadership were other levels of Caucasian Americans fighting against each other. So it's almost that mentality, but within our community, we have internalized this racism. So as we try to prosper, we don't feel and don't see that we should also be able to obtain and deserve such a life.
Part of the deal is this: by embracing a perspective of self-hate, you dislike what you see in the mirror. So when you see your brother who's from another neighborhood, oh, I'm gonna get this cat because either he reminds me of me or there's something that I don't like about myself, so I'm gonna take it out on this guy. And I think that is a big part of our issue And we don't understand that. We don't understand that. I think a lot of our young people have to get to that point where they understand that anybody who's egging you on for some negativity, they don't have your best interest in mind.
That's a
These
good point.
Yeah, I mean, that's real.
And if I'm so imagine this, what do we do a lot when you're walking by somebody that looks like you? Hey man, what you looking at? You know what I mean? Why you staring at me? I want to fight him. He just keep looking at me. I got students in the class. That's that mirror image. Like, man,
Yes.
what you looking at, man? Why you looking at me, man?
And this is because they feel seen. Their insecurities, he must know that I'm feeling insecure. So he's looking at me because of that insecurity, because I was molested or because I didn't have nothing to eat. He sees that I didn't have anything to eat and he's making fun of me. I'm a get him.
Right.
I'm a get him. You know what I mean? It's the internal struggle that causes those external actions. And I think we don't hug each other enough. We don't see each other enough. We don't acknowledge each other enough. And if I can say, hey, I see you, my brother, I know it ain't great, but I still see you. Where, especially in a society that wants to ignore you, wants to look up every day. I call it bird watching. Whenever I see people and I'm acknowledging them, like, how you doing? They start looking up, down, all around. Right. They bird watching because they don't want to acknowledge me.
Right.
And so I chuckle every time I do it. I chuckle out loud so that they understand that, listen, I understand that something's going on with you that won't allow you to see me, right?
Right.
And so if it ain't bird watching, it's mean mugging, you know, because they don't want to see you or they don't want to be seen by you, because people think that you can read their minds, which is wild. You know, we can't do that. But they think you can read your mind and they see your insecurity. And so they're going to attack you before you attack them in their mind.
And it could be a great relationship. You could just speak, and it happens all the time. It's an inferiority complex, man, and it's a major buildup. So let's talk about briefly family, man. So how long you been married? How many kids, man?
Yeah, man.
How's that going, man?
Listen, I've been fortunate, brother. I've been married 14 years. We got 4 kids, 2 boys and 2 girls. I got boys at the beginning and boys at the end and 2 girls in the middle. We got 15, 11, 9, and 6. And, you know, it's been good, man. I met my wife at Tuskegee on that trip that I told you about. I met her. We were at age 17. Turns out we have the same birthday. She's 15 minutes older than me, but we always stayed in touch from that day on, celebrated birthdays together. We eventually got married when we were 30. But
that's amazing.
Yeah, pretty amazing, right? That's pretty amazing story. And that came from my mother having some foresight to send me and to do, you know, you don't know how the steps are ordered. You don't know what the plan is. You just have to be able to trust it and be grateful for the journey, right?
Now, you got any athletes?
So my wife ran track at Georgia Tech, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so my oldest, he plays football. He's doing pretty well. Got him at these camps and doing all this stuff. My youngest, we're about to start him in flag football. My oldest daughter, the 11-year-old, she started running with the track team this year. She's a natural runner. And then our second oldest daughter, she's our head chef here at the house. And she's a masterful artist, man. She's a masterful artist. The kids have talent that we can only imagine we would have had in terms of parents. So we're grateful for that and helping
so much
them
brilliance. So much brilliance, man.
Yeah.
So how would you lead the world, man? We usually close out, man, with a message to the world. So if you had the last thing you would say for the world today, man, what would it be?
It would be grateful. Be grateful for the journey. You know, show gratitude in everything that you do. Gratitude and charity, it can be as little as a smile. So if you can do that, you can give back something to the world, whether it be a smile or, you know, untold wealth, then you've made a difference. And I think that's really what it is, man. Make sure that you leave some useful knowledge, whether it's a written word or contributing to an institution of knowledge, or mentoring and guiding folks who are going to pray for you and remember you afterwards. Then you've done what you're supposed to do. So I think that's the approach, and that's the way to be. And if we can do that, then everybody's going to benefit.
Man, Dr. Shakir Abdul, man, it's been years. I haven't talked to you over probably 20 years, man.
Yeah, it's been a minute, man. It's crazy.
Hey, man, we be playing words with friends, man.
Yeah.
And you be spelling these $100 words, man. I'm like, I can't beat this dude, man. Hey, oh, man.
But listen, man, that is a way. There's a way to stay connected. Whatever the pathway to stay connected, you take it and use it. So I'll be honest, I'm a huge fan of technology for that reason, because there's so many people, who I'm not in touch with, who I have connections with, but social media allows me to see their growth and to share in their life. So I certainly appreciate that, man, because, I've been gone from Canton since '99. I never went back home after I graduated from college. So I've literally been gone from Canton since '95, man. I have not lived in Canton full time for 20 years, 25 years, man.
Man, I saw your brother. He said, man, your boy Shaq, man, I think it was during the Hall of Fame. He's like, man, he rented out the movie theater. What'd y'all watch? The women's movie about the scientists, the female scientists. Was that
no, it was The Lion King. You talking about our family reunion? Or
yes, yeah. He said you rented out
the Lion King. It was The Lion King.
Oh, okay. He said y'all rented out the theater, and he said your boy doing his thing. That's the Dameen came up.
And what's crazy is Dameen is doing his thing too, man. I'm so proud of my big brother, man, because he was the one. He showed me the way. He showed me what not to do in terms of, because he had one foot in and one foot out of the streets.
Oh, I remember. He was good at it. He was good at the streets.
Right.
As far as financially.
He kept me out of it. He kept me out of it. And I appreciate him to this day for that. Because he's like, no, this is what you do this. And people looked out for me. He looked out for me. And to see him thriving, as a father and as a productive citizen, man, I'm proud of my big brother, man.
Man. Well, hey, God bless you. Thanks for your time.
Appreciate you, brother.
What we might have to do is I want to get with you, Dwight Smith, Julius Lancaster, man. We can do the Kings. We call it the Kings of the Round Table, man. And it's time to expand this platform, man, and continue to chop it, man. But thanks for everything. Everybody that's watching, we want to thank you for tuning in. Once again, this is valuable history, a valuable testimony of basically gratitude, no looking back, and the importance of community. And we want to thank you. Hey, God bless you, brother. Love you, man. Hey, keep it up, man. You're inspirational.
Love you too, brother. God bless you too, brother. Appreciate you, man.
Peace.